A seasoned diplomat with an extensive career in senior foreign service, including pivotal roles in diplomatic mission and conflict zones. He brings a wealth of experience, especially in terms of navigating through complex geopolitical landscapes. Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with the Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy, David Brownstein.
Thank you. That's an incredibly kind welcome, and the privilege is mine. And I wish I resembled that. That's incredibly kind. But really, I'm so glad to have a chance to chat with you. And
thank you. We are privileged. We at the Bahrain this week is indeed honored to have you with us. And especially the week where you're officiating. Yes.
I call myself the fake ambassador. Ambassador Bondi is on well-deserved leave, so I'm the chargé d'affaires.
Thank you so much.
And the embassy will still be standing when he comes back.
That's nice. David, let me begin with this. It's 2 years in Bahrain, right? Yes. How do you look at this 2 years? Some of the projects that were close to your heart, some initiatives. Let's begin on that.
Yeah.
Tell us something.
I mean, I've loved every country I've been in, but speaking frankly, this has been one of the best 2 years of my career. Bahrain, the 2 years here have been a chance to really engage in diplomacy that has mattered. On the grand scale, we've had the signing of the Comprehensive Security, Integration, and Prosperity Agreement, kind of the first of its kind in the Middle East, and I think something 2.5, 3 years ago, a lot of people would have said, impossible, it's not going to happen. We've seen our trade, our bilateral trade, go from about 700 million to almost 3 billion. Why does that matter? It's just numbers. Every one of those dollars is jobs in Bahrain or the United States. Every one of those dollars means something better for each of our respective countries. So I'm really proud of that, that our teams have been able to accomplish. I've been happy to just be able to meet Bahrainis. Someone asked me about a year ago. They said, okay, at that point it was a year. They said, okay, you've been in Bahrain for a year. You know, how would you describe Bahrain? One word. And I thought about it and I said, it's a very kind country.
Indeed.
And it really is. So we've been able to move the large diplomatic pieces, but I've been able to meet Bahrainis. I've been able to go to people's homes. And I hope in a small way, I've been able to continue the tradition of U.S. diplomats of kind of just being good partners and neighbors, and continue to build on this almost century-and-a-half partnership that we have between our two countries.
The word is true, kind.
Yeah.
This country is beautifully kind.
Yeah.
And to people like you and me, it's home. We've never felt otherwise. When it comes to U.S. and Bahrain, the bond, the ties, it dates back, isn't it?
Yes.
And you just mentioned 1 year back, you spoke about it. And after 2 years and after getting to know a lot more about the country, how do you think the projects, the initiatives at the embassy have contributed to further strengthening? Of course, it's a very strong tie. But then how do you think it has contributed to strengthening further ties?
Well, I think to some degree, just the kind of the larger piece that I just described show the growth. The fact that we've been able to sign an unprecedented agreement that doesn't happen between friends that don't trust each other and don't know each other. So I think on a macro level, we've moved things in a significant way, which in terms of been timely, given what's happening in the region. On a more local level, I think I've been really proud of the expansion of our people-to-people programs, our public affairs programs. I think you yourself got to experience.
I'm actually in love with your projects for students.
That's the key, right? And that's the key, because the point behind those programs with students is it's planting a seed, right? Yes, we want them to go to the United States, to learn about the United States, hopefully develop an affinity for the United States. And I think one of the strengths of those programs is we show the entire country, right? What we think what is great about it, some of the difficulties we have. You see America, the good, the bad, and everything. And I think by showing that the true honest face of it, people come back and feel a strong attachment. But the bigger part is that it's planting seeds in Bahrain's future. So I think one of the things that we're incredibly, I wouldn't say proud of, because it's not our place to be proud, but honored, is that so many members of the cabinet were educated in the United States or are graduates of our programs. And Bahrain is one of the rare countries where people go abroad and come home. Right, there's this affinity to come home and build the next generation and the future. So all our student programs are designed to build the next generation of Bahrain. They come back, they contribute to the country, that expands kind of the economy, it promotes stability, and it sets the stage for what comes next. So that, for me, is what I'm most proud of. Then there's the fun part. You got to experience our chef that we brought here.
Yes, I did.
Wita Michelle, and you tasted the food. You got to experience kind of the fun, the joy, the cross-cultural, sharing kind of Southern food and Bahraini food and creating dishes. That really, it's fun, but that really exemplifies the strength of our relationship of taking things that are, yes, there's the policy piece, but the absolute people-to-people piece, making something that's uniquely Bahraini American. You got memories. Yeah. I imagine you still taste what you ate, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. When it comes to people, it's always about culture, cuisine, and the art. You as being a very strategic partner of the Bahrain, most of, at least people like me, journalists or, academicians, we think in terms of political level only. Likewise. But when it comes to the ground level or the grassroots level, that's where people like Chef Wita plays their role,
And that's really diplomacy. Diplomacy it certainly is about policy. It's about kind of the big pieces, but it really succeeds through the relationships. And I know that's a cliche, but it's true. You can't come to an agreement particularly on the tough stuff, let alone the easy stuff, if you don't know each other and trust each other. And whether it's an individual basis in negotiations or in terms of nations that have gotten to know each other over years and say, okay, we don't agree with this, this is different than we expected, but we have history. And then there's that additional layer, like for instance, the program with Chef Michelle. It's a wonderful culinary, but the focus is on entrepreneurship. So at the last event that she had out at Youth City, which again, an amazing initiative from the Bahraini part on really understanding that youth programs and in getting youths, investing in youth and having youth invested in society is how you build stability in the future and how you build a better future. So I was at a table with some of the participants, and what they said is, yes, they certainly got the food, but I gave them ideas on what to do with their businesses. And I was sitting at a table with a gentleman who was coming out of marketing and had started his own business making cakes at home. And what he took away from the sessions with Wita Michelle was ways he could expand his business. So again, that's the key. It's fun, but underlying each of these programs is a very strong and concrete goal that helps Bahrain move forward, and by Bahrain moving forward, that helps us in our relationship because it promotes stability and Bahrain's strength in the region.
Great. And coming to your career, did you choose this?
That's a fair question. Yes. So short answer, yes. Okay. But in a very roundabout way. Okay. So I grew up in Ethiopia in the 70s and 80s. Right. My mother worked for the United Nations, so I grew up there. And my first 11 years were there. And I would go to the U.S. Embassy. And at that point, it was just, wow, this is America. Because I didn't grow up in America, right? So this is what America is. So I said, I want to work in an embassy one day. But more for just aesthetic reasons. Like, it was a flag, the Marines. But then as I got older, and I got back to the States, and was in school, and I was very much a foreign policy nerd, I became much more interested in the policy piece of it, and having grown up overseas and being in the United States. There's nothing like going overseas to really make you believe more deeply in your country, right? So, and I do, to this day, believe fundamentally in what the United States has to offer. And I wanted to be part of that. But I also wanted a perspective of people who'd been abroad, who'd been on the receiving end of U.S. policy, to have that perspective in the conversation, the discussion. So yes, I wanted to do that. So then I took some detours. I knew I wanted to have development experience, and I wanted military experience before joining the State Department, because it is the intersection of what we call the 3 Ds: diplomacy, defense, development, defense, and diplomacy. And through a rather roundabout way, I got military experience and development experience in Southern Africa, and then I joined the State Department. So yes, I did choose it, but it chose me, not necessarily in the time that I expected. And I said when I came in with my wife, I said, look, we'd be in this as long as it was fun, whether it was 1 year or 50 years, 17 years, we're still in. Okay. But it's been a fantastic career, a meaningful career. And this sounds corny, but it's sincere. Every day at every embassy I've been, I walk in, I look at the flag. I'm amazed that I get to do this.
That speaks volumes about your passion for the job, and that's what makes you successful. I believe in that. You need to love what you do, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in this career, you've had some very important postings, especially countries like Syria, isn't it? Iraq, Morocco.
Yeah.
Tell us something about those postings, which were very crucial.
Yeah, I think the key piece there, for each of those, and I'll talk about Syria, all of them, but Syria and then Central African Republic, which were two of probably the most conflictual postings that I served in. And, when you look at conflict diplomacy and you look at the news and you think of it as, again, the macro, you're managing a lot of crises, and stories I could tell you. Right? But the key piece there, more than anything, and the really tough moments came down to the ability to build relationships with people who were mistrustful, who were broken, who had been through hell, who had promises broken to them or had no reason to trust. And so in both Central African Republic and in Syria, what I tried to do was invest as much time as possible in listening. And I think one of the key pieces in any diplomacy, but certainly crisis diplomacy, is you're trying to kind of build trust to help you find ways out of this small, is listening and really understanding where people are coming from, why they feel, and then being able to speak to that honestly. The other key piece of diplomacy, particularly in tense situations, there's this kind of, trope about diplomacy kind of telling people what they want or lying. Absolutely not. The day you lie in diplomacy is the day you're done. So in Syria and in Central African Republic, I think when I say I was successful, I would never say like I was successful, but where we succeeded was able to build relationships step by step with people who had not had a relationship before and did not know that we were listening, really understand where they're coming from, tell them what we could and could not do, and then move forward. And quite frankly, for instance, in Central African Republic, it was those relationships, sometimes with people who didn't like me or I necessarily wouldn't like, sometimes with people, and in Syria, with people who, quite frankly, if they had the chance, would potentially have wanted to do bad things to me and vice versa. But those are the relationships where, there's an instance in Central African Republic where we were talking through the night until 3 a.m. to avert a massacre. There's a part of the city that was surrounded by one particular group was in this part of town, another group had surrounded it. And it took about 5 hours of discussions. But what they said eventually is they said, okay, we know you. We know you. You'll do what you say. Okay, we'll stop, and we go. And then that led to the next phase of conversations, going in and then starting to unravel this. So I think in those situations, it's the little things that actually make for big diplomatic success.
Right. I'm sure it was an interesting ride,
something.
Isn't it? And
it was
looking
something.
Back,
yeah. It was an incredible privilege, and I really mean that. A lot of people use that word, and it was an incredible privilege to have the responsibility and honor to be able to play that role, and it was a scary role because it wasn't theoretical. Like if we got it right or wrong, potentially people's lives are at stake. And again, I'm not trying to make myself more grand than I am. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying this was not about us. It was about people's lives. Stressful because of that. It was incredible. It was a cost. You certainly come out of that. Quite frankly, if you don't come out of that feeling somehow like you've been beaten up, you haven't been doing it. But it was an incredible honor and privilege to be able to be there for the parts that we played.
And I think it's knowing people, what matters, and that makes one a great diplomat. And I think you've done your job.
Oh, well, thank you.
I can feel that. I can really feel that, David. And you are a busy diplomat. I can see that because you have your passion lying in your job, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just mentioned about your wife, and I know you have a daughter.
Yeah.
How do you strike the balance?
It's that is the question, right? Look, I think that is. I think I've spent a good portion of my career trying to find that balance. I've made mistakes. I think I could not have done it without them. And I'm lucky in that I have an incredibly patient and understanding wife and daughter. Okay. I've been in State Department for 17 years. And 4 of those years I've been in unaccompanied tours. I didn't set out to do that. It wasn't like I'm going to do this. It kind of happened.
It happened, yeah.
Right. And so, but you make choices, right? And so at the end of the day, yes, it was a collective choice, but I chose. So there's a price. There's 4 years of my daughter's life that but I think the other part is the time that short when I was back, we certainly made it valuable time. But I think it's important to be honest about these things too. And I taught for 2 years at 2.5 years at our training institute for new diplomats. It's this course called A100. All new diplomats come in. And the best part of that is that I've got at this embassy, even in Syria and in Central African Republic, I had some of my former students. who worked with me for it. It was awesome to see that. But people would ask me the same question, say like, career, how do you manage your career? How do you manage family? I'd say, look, I don't know. There's no one answer. Kind of the analogy I used is it's like you're surfing a wave, right? So you have to trust that the wave, to a certain degree, when you're surfing the wave, is putting you where it's going to put you. But it's your job to learn how to swim and learn how to surf. So you can't just let it drown you. You need to learn to move left and right, and you have to learn how not to hit other surfers and so you have a degree of agency, but you have to trust where it's going, right? You can't be like, I'm going to trust that, there's lots of different words for it, kismet, fate, whatever it is, right? And do the best you can, be the best person you can while you're doing it. And then with the family piece, what I say now to people, what I said then is choosing family is never the wrong choice, right? But whatever choice you make sure it is a collective decision. And if you do choose for whatever reason, and every person and family has to make their own decision, to choose to, to take a job that takes you away from family or it takes a lot, make sure you're doing it with your eyes open, you've had an honest conversation, and you know why you're doing it, and make sure you build in mechanisms to recoup and to maintain the relationship, because it's very easy to lose that connection, because this is a seductive job. When you're you can very easily get sucked in by. We are dealing with world-shaking things, right? So it's easy to get seduced by that and forget that our feet are still on the ground, and one day this will be gone, and you hope your family's there if you haven't abandoned them.
Very well said, very well said. And I think that applies to every professional who's in love with their profession or their job. At the end of the day, you need to come back and you need to make sure that they are with you, even in this rough or easy or lovely ride, whatever you call it.
And forget too that, the job is incredible, but you are not the job. One day, when you leave the office, you're still you, right? So you can't assume that everything that you've left behind will still be there.
These are beautiful things that we hear, but I don't know how
it's hard. No, like I said, I've made mistakes, and I'm lucky they're still with me. I think I'm certainly better at it than I was in the early days. It's hard. I don't have a good answer except to kind of share the lessons of my career and kind of things I've done well and the mistakes I've made.
Yeah. I know it's a busy life out there. You may not have much free time, but given some free time, what would you do?
In Bahrain or in life?
In life.
So I love to read.
Okay.
I love to write a lot.
Any specific genres?
Yeah. So I'm going to show my inner geek.
Okay.
I love science fiction.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the reason I love science fiction is like when it's well done, it really weaves together history. Good science fiction kind of is grounded in reality, and it weaves together kind of a lot of kind of what we know of history into kind of a world that could be, right? But I also love history, reading history. I'm not good at it, but I love woodworking. I love kind of just trying to create something with my hands. I'm terrible at it, but I do like doing it. And my dream, of course, I love, like just last night, my daughter and I went for a walk and we played tag. So I love kind of doing that when we have a place in Vermont, which is the northeast of the United States, very rural, so kayak and hike. And my dream when I retire is to learn how to build wooden boats.
Interesting. So you must...
but I'm going to need people to teach you because like I said, I'm not very good at it naturally.
Let's try the Dow building here in
So
Bahrain.
I want to do that. I actually really want to do that. That's in my last year here, one of the things I want to do on the weekend is see if I can get linked up with the folks who do that and be an apprentice.
Yeah, that's nice. That's really interesting. I've seen them doing it and you must try.
I might have to get some contacts from you.
Definitely. Why not? Why not? And David, I've never seen you without a smile. And a smile turning into a laugh, exactly like this, It doesn't mean that you're ever stress-free. I've always wondered, how can this man smile to a laugh always? The job or the seat that you are, it's not easy on a day-to-day basis. But how do you manage your team, your day-to-day? Take us through your day, one day.
Yeah, one is I have a very good team, so that makes it easy. And I'm not just empty words. It's a really good team. That makes it easy. I think the key, again, you have to go back to go forward a bit in diplomacy. We're always talking. But I promise you, I think diplomacy is an inherently optimistic profession. It has to be. And I think diplomats are inherently optimistic because if you look at kind of the things we deal with and for instance, even look at the region right now, there's a lot of really tough things happening that often are heartbreaking. And I've served in places that have broken my heart. When I left Syria and I left Central African Republic, I cried, literally cried. But it's inherently optimistic because with all those things you deal with, you can't go to work every day unless you believe that in some way, shape, or form, you're going to make a difference. So every diplomat is an optimist because otherwise they'd be crushed at home, right?
Yeah.
So I would say we're all inherently optimistic. So that's part of it. It's like, whether it's a tiny bit or a big piece, you come in and make a difference. In terms of the job here, so of course, Ambassador Bondi very well. So he's, if he's the chief executive officer, kind of our chief, I'm the chief operating officer. So it's my job to ensure that he has what he needs to do his job, and the embassy as a platform can do its job. And what that means is, it's not that I drive the embassy, it's that, quite frankly, the opposite. The platform is the team. It's the building, it's the lights, but it's every person here who does the job, right? And so it's ensuring that they have what they need, whether it's guidance, whether it's resources, whether it's freedom, whether it's autonomy, whether it's support. So it's a lot of meetings during the day, but I actually like them because it's not meetings about, there's policy meetings, but a lot of it is just checking with sections. How's it going? What's on your plate? What do you need from me? They have a question. I have a question for them. So it's very collaborative to kind of keep the ship going on, course corrections, and figure out whether from a macro piece or a resource piece, they have what they need. It's a lot of kind of touching. I mean, metaphorically, walking around, how's it going, what's going on, and also making sure that I have an open door, and that I'm also open to receiving from them either criticism or suggestions, like, hey, I need this, this is not what we're getting, got it, what do you need? People have asked what's kind of the best training. We go through a lot of training, right? But I guess there's two pieces. Being a parent is one of the best, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, like these are my children, but just that ability to kind of listen, understand, figure out what's going on.
Maybe because you had a bit of a stint of teaching.
Teaching,
That's where you picked that from, right?
And then the other part of it is a bit of mix was a bit alternative was I was a sergeant in the Army. Okay. That's also useful, and it's not the yelling, it's not that, but it's the Army. In the Army, you learn to kind of live and work with everybody, because you get all walks of life. So I think those two things have been the best. So yes, I'm in a leadership position, but I think I do my job best if I lead by supporting and listening.
Good. What's the best thing that you like about Bahrain?
Oh my gosh.
2 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you talk about the smile. I think the sense of joy I have here across the board. Like I said, there's the kindness of the people, and it's sincere. And in terms of just even engagement with the government, I've worked in many places. Here, we're not arguing every day whether we love each other. That's the relationship established. It's like, what are we going to do about it? So it's a chance to just be able to do our jobs as people, as diplomats, without fighting for every inch of terrain on little stuff that, little symbolic stuff that takes on outsized importance. It's the freedom to be kind of the diplomat I've always wanted to be. Okay. And enjoy the country and its people.
That's a big compliment for Bahrain, and I think I haven't heard any different from anybody else.
Yeah, it is.
This country is that, And maybe 1 year more, or
I have one more year. Unfortunately for us in our system, particularly in these positions, ambassadorial and deputy chief of mission jobs, it's a set term, 3 years. So my successor was actually named 4 months after I arrived. Okay. But I've known her for over 10 years. She's fantastic. Okay. So I would love to stay longer, but I'm so happy to be able to hand off my chair to Liz, who's coming after me. You'll meet her, and you will love her. Okay.
All right. So what do you foresee in the next 1 year of your stay in Bahrain?
So I think on the policy piece, what we want to do is keep building on the foundation that we built with CIPA. The CIPA. And that's kind of what we're talking about with the government right now. Is okay, we've signed the documents. It's been tested during current issues, particularly with the Houthis, and it's been found sound. Now where do we go next? So that's a lot of what we're focused on. We want to really solidify the structure that's on the paper and make it concrete. The other piece, I think, is trade. We want to continue to expand trade because, like I said, it's it's good for Bahrain, it's good for my country, right? And jobs equal growth, and growth equals stability. I think from an embassy perspective, I want to ensure that the platform continues to be able to support the expanded mission that we have. With CIPA and other things, we have more work. So I have to find a place to put more people. And those are the little things that you don't think about diplomacy. Diplomacy requires a degree of resources, and it requires space. I'm running out of space. So I want to make sure that the platform continues to be able to support the relationship, and that I turn over an embassy platform as the deputy chief of mission to my successor that's absolutely able to kind of carry on the mission when she arrives.
Wonderful. So that was nice talking to you. One last question.
Yeah,
I've also read about your love for languages.
I do love languages. Yeah.
Did you learn Arabic?
I did. Yeah, I learned Arabic. So actually, Arabic and French are my two main languages. I learned French actually, and I've studied French almost all through grade school, and then department gave refresher.
Did you learn Arabic? I'm sure from the other postings as well,
so
right?
I learned Arabic. Interesting enough, I first learned. I've always wanted to learn it, but I learned it in the Army. The Defense Language Institute is an 18-month immersion program. Okay. So Arabic all day, every day. Interesting enough, in Monterey, California. And then I've served in Morocco and in Iraq, Syria, so I've been able to use it. And it's a language I love. Ironically, sadly, my language has gotten worse here because everybody in Bahrain speaks English better than I do. So I don't get the chance to practice it, although I do. But it has been an incredibly, people say like, in the modern day, is language, do you need language as a diplomat? You've got Google Translate. I would say we need it more than ever. Because the language, if you're able to communicate in the language, one, it shows respect. And that's the key piece. It shows that you've invested the time to learn the language of the land in which you're in, even if you don't speak. And again, I think there's a difference between, language is about communication, and communication is not about grammatical correctness. It's about, can you connect and get the idea across? So, you may be able to speak it correctly or not, but have you been able to
reach out to the other person?
Right. Yeah. And so now more than ever, when there's so many other channels that are impersonal but effective, learning a language and being able to speak to someone in their own language is so important. And I found it in my career, both in just general meeting people and in crisis situations, indispensable. Indispensable. It's gotten me out of trouble, like dangerous trouble, but it's also allowed me and us to get through some tough crisis situations from a policy perspective on the ground. And it's also just allowed me to meet and enjoy and experience the countries I'm in much more fully.
Right. Thank you, David. That was wonderful talking to you. And I didn't feel like an interview.
No, it felt like a conversation. Yes, we should be having tea and coffee.
That was amazing. Yeah. And maybe I would close with requesting you to speak something in Arabic to the readers of Bahrain this week, please.
وشكرا جزيلا كلكم للوقت الذي قضيتهن، وأتمنى في السنة المقبلة سوف أستطيع أن سوف أحاول أن أتناول الطعام أكثر من الآن، وأريد أن أوسع الخبرة ثقافية وفقط في أنحاء البلد. عندي سنة واحدة إضافيا، أريد أن ألمس كل الجزيرة، وأريد أن أكل الطعام إضافيا.
Wow, that was more than a sentence.
I know, I couldn't stop. Diplomats, once you start us talking, you can't stop us.
I did not understand.
It was one of the things, my brain froze up.
Thank you, David.
Thank
we
you.
wish you all the very best in all your future endeavors, in Bahrain as well as beyond.
No, thank you
very
for this
happy
opportunity.
to have you here.
Really,
right?
truly grateful. Thank you.
That was David Brownstein, the Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain, with us on Bahrain This Week.